Okay, on this video, we're going to start compositing our penguins into a new scene. So I've taken the time and I've carefully knocked this out. So you see I've got all the backgrounds done and everything as pixel perfect as I can make it. And what I want to do now, first I want to point out that, look, notice I've saved it as a Photoshop file. I've called it Penguins Knockout PSD. Right? Again, this is non-destructive Photoshop. I never throw away these pixels. If I ever wanted to, right, I could go work on this mask again and add in a place, right? If say I needed that for some weird reason, right? And so it's just a good practice to go ahead and save it as a Photoshop file, just to go back to a non-destructive Photoshop file. Now in this exercise, we're going to be making these penguins walk down New York City. And so we have to think, before we can just drag these penguins in there, and before we even went through all this work of knocking out the penguins, but of course I've selected this for you, is make sure that the penguins are going to be big enough to go into the New York City, right? What if I didn't have the right resolution and the penguins wound up coming out like this big, right? That wouldn't work for us because of our plan in our mind is to put them right here in the image. And so you should check resolution, right? You should always be working in the biggest resolutions you can get away with, but at a minimum be thinking about print. So if I bring up the image size for this New York City one, right, image size, I just use the quick keys. Well, how big is this photo? This is 11 and a quarter inches by 17 and a quarter inches at 300 DPI, right? So this is big enough to make a spread in a magazine. Let's pretend we're making a spread in a magazine. So that's prepped exactly how we want it. These penguins, how big are they? Well, I could mathematically figure that out then by bringing this up and saying, oh, this prints, well, that's wrong, right? We have to go to make sure it's at 300. These penguins are 4 by 6, right? So we know they only be about a quarter of this image. But I think that's going to work, right? You can't just look at those numbers actually and think it's going to work. Probably the best way to do this is to prep this first image. And before I even knocked this out, I could have easily, here, watch this. I could have, right, this is what the image was originally, and it has some kind of a resolution. And when we already know how to drag one from another, then I can see, oh yeah, those penguins are going to be plenty big, right? Because I prepped this image to print size and this, right? Because, you know, we may be compositing just a small part of an image, right? And so we don't, you know, it's a red herring to look at the full image size. But we don't want to do that, right? We want to bring our prepped layer in. So again, all we do is we drag it into here. I'm going to close that to get it out of the way. And you see here all the same thing, right? We've got our image and our layer. And now I haven't destroyed any of this thing, but I can start working here. So I'm pretty sure I can go ahead and apply this layer mask, right? So I right click on the layer mask and apply it. And now I'm back to just pretty much a normal layer of image, right? And so we have here these penguins, and we are going to start making it look like they are actually in the scene. And there's a lot of things that we're going to have to do, right? But this is kind of just an interstitial video to talk about resolution and compositing things together.